Um, Diana Align is a Palestinian American author, speaker, and trauma informed faith advocate who helps women from diverse backgrounds heal childhood trauma and break generational cycles through faith driven strategies. As the author of Tragic Whispers and creator of the Tragic Whispers platforms, she draws from her lived experiences to address survival behaviors, faith, and emotional healing with authenticity and compassion. Through her signature message, she equips women with practical tools to move from survival to purpose and from brokenness to wholeness. That was a great bio of Diana, and here is her audio video presentation.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dina Lane, author of Tragic Whispers, Secrets from the Heart of a Broken Palestinian American Woman. I'm so excited to be here with you today. We're going to discuss what memories are, what hidden memories are, and we're going to see how to find out the root cause of what has been creating the dysfunction in lives. So we'll just start off with what a memory is. And a memory is something that happens. It doesn't fully unhappen. Usually our childhood memories will dictate to us throughout our lives. And it shows, and it reflects on how we show up. So with that being said, let's talk about healing the past. And it's not blaming the past. It's about freeing the future. The German scientist Erwin Habermas, he discovered that memories follow a pattern, meaning that we forget neutral information quickly. For example, in third grade on a Tuesday, nobody remembers that, right? However, if you were bullied, you're going to remember that. When you were first loved, you'll remember that. So something that happens once is an event. Something that repeats itself is a pattern, and it's stored in your brain. And so that's what a hidden memory is when we have these memories and we don't forget them, but we don't quietly acknowledge them throughout our life. until we trace the root. Sigmund Freud said that he discovered that hidden memories, that our brain pushes these painful memories, causing confusing awareness of what's going on. But we don't always remember. Just because we don't always remember them doesn't mean that they're gone. And later, Edward de Bono, another scientist, he introduced lateral thinking, meaning we can think outside of the box. So when we move deeper, we find these hidden memories or past experiences that may not actively be happening in our mind that we're thinking about. So, but it's actually connected to fear or failure, not pleasing your parents or teacher, the need for approval. So they arise from childhood pressure or childhood memories. And that's why some reactions feel bigger at the moment, because we're not often reacting to what's just in front of us. We're reacting from the past. So here's a simple truth about how these memories show up. They show up with triggers, emotional triggers. And a trigger is something happening now. For example, your boss tells you, we need to talk about your performance. So in your mind, that tone feels really serious and your stomach starts to drop. You feel anxious or defensive. And more than likely, that's connecting to an earlier experience of criticism. Or like you're not good enough. You didn't make the cool kids club at school. Something like that, okay? If your spouse or mate says, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me sooner? You're feeling questioned. And the pattern is you're going to shut down or you're going to have a very sharp answer for that, right? And your why could be echoing from the past moments where you felt accused or unsafe. So triggers are signals. They're not weaknesses. Strong reactions often point to pain. So let's name the pattern. So when you do that, you want to listen to what's in your head, listen to what's true and what no longer serves you, because filtering is where your power is going to begin. And you have 4 domains of that. You have emotional, physical, behavioral, mental, meaning you're going to have anger, shame, guilt, fear, anxiety, sadness, depression. Physically, your chest gets tight, your stomach drops, you maybe withdraw, maybe you're snapping a little too much, or you're over-explaining too much. You're doing too much people-pleasing. Mental is a big one because you have spiraling thoughts, self-criticism, and that's the script running in your head. Usually, it's I'm not enough. What's wrong with me? And that's what I felt a lot of my life growing up, because that's what replayed over and over in my head as an older adult. And I traced it to, it came back from my mother's words and my father's actions. My father was Palestinian. He left us years ago. He passed away. And my mother, fiery, spicy redhead from Kentucky. So you put those two together and wow, that's just a combination for a dysfunctional family and raising children. So we think we're reacting to what's happening now, but in reality, we're responding to something earlier in life. Now remember, awareness is the first step towards change, because patterns reveal who we had to become in order to cope. So, triggers and patterns. Triggers are the signals, patterns are the repeated responses, and together that supports what us trauma survivors already know. Our earliest childhood trauma does not just become memories, they become our templates of how we think and how we feel and how we survive. So let's go to tracing the root. Every pattern has an origin, okay? Our repeated responses did not start in adulthood. They started when something felt unsafe or we felt unsafe. So even before you stepped into leadership or parenting, whatever that looks like to you, at home, at work, your nervous system has already developed a leadership style and how you show up. So if you grew up in chaos, you're probably leading with a lot of control. if you're staying quiet. Maybe you were unseen as a child. Being a middle child as I was, you have the older child, the baby, and here you are in the middle. You really don't get hurt a lot. So you may be avoiding those hard conversations and you don't speak up. So because you're feeling unseen. So what that means is you're going to be looking for affirmation or confirmation, saying I matter when I'm noticed. So you might be overworking to prove that, and that's your nervous system looking for reassurance. So as a recap on tracing the root, when you understand where it started, then it stops feeling random and you stop blaming yourself. And you can't change what you don't trace. Clarity begins the moment you look back with honesty and name what's true. And that will be your why. You don't heal to rewrite your past. We heal to stop the past from rewriting us. Buckminster Fuller, an American architect, designed a geodesic dome. That's a lightweight sphere structure, and it's made of interconnected triangles. He believed that problems shouldn't be solved in isolation. Everything is connected. Just like, okay, let's take animals, for example. They're born with the instinct of survival. They know what to do. As children, we have no clue. We have to be taught, taken care of, and nurtured. And if that comes in a dysfunctional way, that's going to be the pattern that we usually lead with. And you can trace your roots and rewrite your narrative, because the past might explain you, but it doesn't define you and it doesn't get to name you. God gets to name you. Awareness is where responsibility Awareness is where responsibility begins, and grace will meet you there. Because once you see the pattern, you don't have to carry it alone. You can bring it to God and surrender it, and that's where your transformation will begin. In Romans 12:2, it's talking about not conforming to the old patterns, but being transformed through the renewing of your mind. So renewing the thinking process renews your leadership. And when God renews your mind, your responses shift. And then your leadership shifts, because the way you respond shapes your legacy. Healing doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you're meant to be and who you're no longer reacting from old wounds. You lead with clarity. Mistakes you made years ago do not determine your leadership today. Once you become aware of the root, you gain the power to choose differently. So when a trigger shows up at home or work, wherever that might be, just pause and decide how you want to respond, because you're not going to know when these triggers show up, but you can be aware that they are going to show up. And choose honesty over fear in difficult conversations, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it requires you to take responsibility for patterns you've carried. Own your truth, hold your head up high, and lead with confidence. Because when you recognize that root pattern, not just a symptom, you're going to begin to live and lead with purpose and not obligation. These are tools you can use today. You can begin with noticing your emotional reactions without judging yourself. Anger, shame, fear, guilt, these are all your reactions. Just notice them. Not to fix it immediately, but just become aware of it. That's the first step. And begin to reflect on what patterns you keep repeating. Pay attention to it. Pay attention to the behaviors that show up again and again. Simply recognize what the patterns are. And then you can take one step towards connection. Share your story. Talk to someone, trusted friend, pastor, elder, whatever that looks like to you. Look for support. And that could be through your friends. There's different organizations, NA, AA. I'm a functioning addict. I was a functioning addict. I am cured of that. I no longer desire any type of drug. My drug of choice was cocaine, and I used for over 30 years, and nobody knew. Functioning addict. I had to finally tell on myself because I surrendered it to God, and He knew what time it was. He was there to help me and lift me up. So I invite you to know the Lord, because He is the one that will name you, not your patterns or your childhood trauma. Because I personally didn't have the willpower to do it on my own. It began through surrender. So you can build awareness, you can trace roots, and you can rewrite your patterns. But true for me came through my relationship with Jesus Christ, and it can for you too. So a little bit of reflection. Are you living on autopilot, or are you living on purpose? What pattern might be shaping your leadership today? Remember, healing your childhood trauma is not about blaming the past, even when it rises up. It's about healing your future. And your story is still being written. Yes, you're not here on accident. You're here because you asked for a sign or a signal or help. And this is the Lord bringing you to hear this message. So growth is going to require boundaries that you can, maybe it looks like walking away from people or places that no longer serve you. And change sometimes feels very uncomfortable because it takes you out of your comfort zone, even if that comfort zone is toxic. And lastly, remember, trust that God is making a way behind the scenes, and He has given you the strength and victory right now to take action. And I'll leave you with this, Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all. My name is Dina Elaine. You can find me on the internet. You can find me under my book title, Tragic Whispers, social media, Dina Elaine _author, or DinaElaine.com, or email me, DinaElaine@gmail. God bless everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation, Diana. It was very informative. Thank you.